Hello there, interlopers from beyond the digital veil. It's Art Vander here for Art Speaks Episode 1, a series, an auditory experience, more like, where I share my thoughts and feelings toward pieces of art that I've been working on, along with um, my opinions and experiences in the uh, creative space. I was originally going to work on a script for this, as I've done in the past for previous similar projects, but I think for a more genuine and transparent delivery of my thoughts and feelings, this would be the way to go. A improvised and at times possibly awkward or long pause for thoughts, but I think this is the best way to create a genuine connection with my audience, I suppose. So, to begin with, I would say this. I've been a reclusive artist for the good part of a decade now, where my experiences from business school tapped into a graphic design background, and I spent a good part of my career there, the decade that is, working with graphics and pursuing art as a hobby rather than a passionate pursuit or career choice, really, um, which in hindsight is regrettable. Art is a pursuit of life and love, and if it isn't, well, then it isn't for you. It's quite clear that art can convey and, in fact, connect between all creative pursuits, whether it is music, whether it is painting, writing, photography, film, even. These things are connected through a similar thread, which is emotion and vision, and ultimately what makes us human, what makes us different from, say, the other creatures on this planet. So, with that being said, yes, so I do have traces of my background education in illustration and graphic design, but it goes beyond that because I turned it into a hobby. So when I was pursuing work, oftentimes full-time employment, I would find the evenings that followed to be time for art pieces, whether physical or digital. At the time, I used to do a lot of sketching and physical media like painting, but unfortunately, due to a sporting accident, along with other things, I've developed some sort of nerve issue in my wrist, and so prolonged physical painting or sketching with a pencil or pen even proves to be an uncomfortable task. Therefore, the way forward for me, at least, is through a digital medium now, which I find provides unique potentials in the art itself. And the delivery of message through tonality rather than ferocity and strokes and flourishes as you would find in a physical art form. With that being said, both have their merits, both have their pros and their cons, and neither is necessarily worse than the other. Although I will say that physical media will, and always has been, the more tedious um, art form, as it requires more time, less leniency for mistakes and what have you. But I would say that too often people stereotype, or at least there's a bias in the art perspective, where digital format, especially these days with the introduction of AI art and NFTs and generative illustrations and graphics, people tend to look at digital art as a lesser form. Now, I can see certain arguments for that, but I would say that ultimately the truth lies in not how the art is made or the tools, but the creator and the intentions behind it. For example, you can generate art, yes, and AI art, to me at least, is closer to writing as a skill rather than actually painting or depicting a picture, because the vision is gone. And I would say that all art inherently pulls a lot of its value from its philosophy, or what it stands for, or what the artist believes in. So, when you've got great artists, you would look at their philosophy and how that's influenced their work. Whereas with AI art, or a lot of the time with these NFTs, the philosophy is either purely greed, or there is none, and it's just random. It's you're leaving the art to a binary calculus, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no authority to speak on. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Um, there's no authority to speak on what is ultimately right or wrong, especially art-wise. But I would say that the saturation of that product, because that's ultimately what it is to many people, deducts a certain validity to other people's work. Because sadly, the way that society works is that, from what I've seen and experienced as an artist in my short term, but also as just a consumer, as another entity in the populace, I find that people look at things in a broad sense. They have two takeaways. They can either see it from a generalist perspective, where they take the word of the people, so to speak. There's kind of like a generic appeal to the work. They'll look at it, and that's what they'll make their judgment based on. Or they'll take an individualist turn, and they will take another moment to glance at it, and maybe take a more personal experience from it. Now, those kind of people are typically the ones that you consider your crowd, your audience, because they prefer to sit down and actually admire something for what it could possibly be rather than what it's been taken as. Now, it isn't quite as binary as that, but because I'm generalizing as well, everyone seems to get caught in that little trap of thought architecture. But I would say this: if you had to choose, the easiest would be the former approach, and that's what we all kind of default into at times, especially based on our day-to-day lives, where we're always rushing toward the next development, whether that is a work meeting, just getting to work, just survival in general, cost of living and whatnot, or social plans. In between these instances, you've got maybe intervals of time where you're on your phone looking through what you care about, whether that's videos, art, music, and you don't really have a lot of time for reflection like these artists might. And even the artists, they don't have a lot of time either. A lot of it isn't really deliberate. They find the deliberate intention afterwards when the work is finished. They map it out and they build on that, but oftentimes you'll find that a work is completed before it's explained. Um, and so, you know, that's where the power and influence of emotion come into the work. And now you see a lot of artists these days, and they don't quite like to express that because it's a vulnerability, of course. And so, sharing how you feel when you're working on something such as art is a very personal uh, experience. And, it's the same with music. Music is a slightly more effective medium at conveying emotion because, you know, audio sensory input, it kind of touches us more spiritually. Different types of music have different types of emotional responses: fear, excitement, um, grief, joy. And so art has to work a little bit harder because visual stimulation is so, um, I don't want to say mundane, but I will say overused. Everywhere we look, we're looking at something, typically numerous things. And so, for the sake of latency inhibition, um, we shut that down. We bring it down to a very low level emotionally. And in order to experience true art, we have to open ourselves up to it deliberately. And so my point being, for the long way around, is that mediums like social media platforms, better yet, uh, they do not provide the time nor the opportunity to properly appreciate art. Now, of course, that's not to say that we don't appreciate it. There's a lot of back and forth because you can always counter an argument. You can always say, oh, someone's too opinionated, someone's right, someone's wrong, absolutes and whatnot, and your personal convictions to boot. But I go back and forth not for the sake of being right or wrong, because I could care little about it. And in fact, I dare say the neutral party would be the most evil of two acting opposites, because they don't have the strength to make a deliberate intention or opinion of the matter. I do it more for the fact that perspective is reality. That's kind of a core value for myself. And so, what does that really mean, though? It can be thrown around like numerous words, as we see in this technobabble age of ours. And what it means to me, more so. That's the question that should be asked. Is that you? Well, it's quite obvious, really. I shouldn't even have to explain it, but I will, I suppose. You kind of project uh, mental biases and emotions and feelings at that time onto what you see, what you're doing. Everyone does it. It's almost subconscious, really. You cannot control that, and so two people may not experience the same thing the same way. We already know that. It's it's an absolute, really. Uh, but we always try to share that perspective. Now, when I say something is or isn't, and then tend to maybe voice the opposite to be truth, what I'm doing is I'm trying to project my own perspective and then also maybe an objective truth onto it. I've spent a long time studying, I've actually got on my desk here um, books on philosophy and art and culture. And, one thing I've learned from reading through those uh, is that there's too much uh, to ever truly clarify. There's too much to try to empathize with, to try to understand. you can only really know the truth in what you say, not in what others do. And if you trust others to that extent, well then, either you're a fool or you're in good company. And so, truth be told, funny enough, when you look at art, it's the same way. You're looking at someone's perspective, which has been manifested into physical media, whether that is music, writing, painting, um, photography, film, show, or whatever it might be. That is somebody's vision, or multiple people's visions that have all culminated into an end result, and oftentimes not really touched after that point, and moved on to another adjacent project. So, the point that I'm getting to, and kind of this rant, this ramble itself, I suppose, might be part of the point. There's lots of points I like to make, really. Point is this. Um, I might go back and forth between arguments, but it doesn't invalidate or reduce the credibility of my opinions. And so now that that's been said, I can continue on and say that when I make art, I typically I use tonality. Tonality is a strong thing for me. Colors, I think, colors and shapes are two of the most powerful tools in my arsenal, at least. I know that artists say they can use all sorts of things. They can use negative space to their benefit. They can use, environment, characters, um, artistic genres, mixed media, all to convey a message. Oftentimes, those messages might be a bit muddled because people take them differently, and that's fine. That's part of the beauty of art, really, is what one person sees, another might not. And so it's never truly the same kind of expectation that's been set by artist and arty. But I would say when I'm making art, I'm not really expecting a visceral reaction to the art. I make art because I want comfort. In fact, it can be therapeutic at times. As someone who suffers from um, a chronic type of OCD, the way that shapes and spaces can come together to create meaning and art is beautiful to me, and it's quite relaxing. Sometimes, not all the time. It can sometimes be the opposite, really. Um, but I've always found that. So my style has always been geometric. It's always been quite um, pronounced with shapes and spaces and colors. And if I was to speak of influences, just off the top of my head, I'd say that Bauhaus plays a huge part. Impressionism, Cubism, um, abstract to an extent, but I'd say that more relevant and more modern would be minimalism, of course, and vector arts, and monotones, chromatic aberrations, and what have you. And so all of these different themes and techniques kind of come together in my works. But the one thing I try to do is that I'm experimental. I've always been experimental. I think I've made at least one type of uh, all sorts of arts. Whether it's video, music. I've tried it all. I've got a Fuji here, an XT1, great old camera. And I love photography as well. And I spent a good three to 6 months studying the principles, the three pillars of photography. You know, and that was just another step in the journey toward being a creator. Because really, that's what you are. I mean, artist carries with it a lineage of painting, and I mean, it can kind of refer to a few different pursuits, but oftentimes people don't look at it as being a creator. And then when you say that, people think, oh, influencer, or you're making videos on the internet, um, which I don't really think is how I see it. I see being creator as its purest form, because you're creating, or possibly, depending on your beliefs, you're recycling the ideas that are, um, just out of reach, and you're bringing them back into reality to enjoy, to experience, and to share. And so that's what being a creator is to me, and so that's why I consider it that, and not so much just an artist, because that seems to be quite a singular instance, or at least it can be. And so when I create, I'm always bringing with me these other creative elements, whether it is listening to music, which is a huge aspect of my life. I've got a playlist there that I've been that I've been adding to since school, and there's probably almost 3,000 songs on there, or something like that, and it's just of all genres. That ranges between, um, because good music has no basis. It's such a strange question when you're asked, "Oh, what's your favorite genre?" or "What's your favorite, song?" Well, that's an almost impossible question, really, because you know, y good music ascends genre. It ascends um, instrument or artist. You can have a favorite artist, sure, but by virtue, that's your favorite artist so far. That's your favorite genre so far. But how can you possibly know? And how can you possibly even say with certainty that that is, your favorite thing? I would say that it's much more freeing and comfortable to say that you're a lover of all good music, because good music to you is subjective and good music to you is tasteful. But then again, it might be as well to others. You just don't know. And so keep that door open. It's better to light a candle than to curse the dark, if you know what I mean. Anyway, I'm getting off topic on a bit of a tangent there. But with the art, I recently gone public and started to share it. Hence this recording. Because I was quite a reclusive person prior to this. I hardly use social media, and the times that I did, it was often business related, or maybe photography, um, but it was very rare. It was occasional, maybe once every few months or something like that. So social media has never really been a um, strong suit of mine, and certainly due to lack of trying. I've just never found interest in it, really. And even when I was more social and extroverted, which was my original nature, mind you, I would often be at galleries or museums or exhibitions, openings, or curation toasts, and things like that, and surrounding myself with really creative people, these artistic creatives. Um, and, they're some of the most unique and friendly and original people you can engage with. These people think outside of the box. They share and support each other, um, and oftentimes they're very proud of what they do. And it's a career of joy. It's a career of passion and pride. In fact, you shouldn't even really call it a career at that point. It is a passion, and uh, it is a work of pride. And so, back then though, I was working. I was chasing corporate aspirations, as you often do, and I didn't really see it as anything more than that. I took it in. I embraced the culture. I made many good friends at the time as well. But and I was also doing art as a hobby, but just occasionally, yeah. And many times, I would get these artists saying, "Oh, you should consider doing this. Like, you're passionate about it. It's a calling, as it is for everyone. Really, it's just simply a choice. There's not a prerequisite of talent or skill to make art. That's another folly. It's another fallacy, really, that people often, assume is that, oh, I can't do art. It's just beyond my capacities as a person. Well, nonsense. Everyone can do art. Art can be any sort of form of creativity, really, even if it's just rearranging pebbles to make some sort of shape or something. It can be anything. But anyway, back then I didn't really take it seriously. I was like, yeah, sure, maybe, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, several years later, and now in my reclusive state, uh, especially after COVID and everything, I kind of took a bit of a break from society, a bit of a break from. It can be quite. One thing is, even as an extrovert, because I was a sanguine personality type, really, I was quite outgoing. I would go to, I would speak motivational little talks and stuff like that, and I always tried to carry some confidence. But it's exhausting. It is. One thing that those people don't really say is it's exhausting to pull yourself up every day, get out there and talk to people and share and oftentimes say the same thing over and over again in different ways and in different conversations to different people. And then also trying to uh, holster your own opinions and reserve them out of respect and out of courtesy to people that may not feel the same way, but also trying to maintain and support a friend group, a growing friend group of hundreds of people. I've never understood that. Everyone wants hundreds of friends. Well, until you get it, then you begin to see the challenges of maintaining that many people. No one person can effectively manage hundreds of friends. That's why social media is so stressful. It's why it's all also one-sided. What I mean by that is it's always quite audience entertainer type roles. There's a clear division there, and even though there might be a small social circling close to the creator that they speak to daily or something, friends, family, um, oftentimes there's a clear divide between the host and the attendees, so to speak, the friends and the friend, me and you, etc. Um, and so that was a takeaway I had from that experience. And so nowadays I've got all but none. Like well, none but all. No, I've got very little. But what I'm trying to say is I've got very little friend group, and that's because I stopped fostering it. I stopped my extroversion. I stopped attending those events. I stopped going out, um, and they were active choices. It wasn't a symptom of my depression or some sort of self-destruction. Not that I lack that. In fact, I very much do have those tendencies, but um, it was just an active choice to step back and take a break because it is exhausting. And so here we are. If we bring us back to the present and into this current state, Art Vander is a creator, and so these little audio logs, if you will kind of just convey um, different messages and feelings. Now, this first episode was, of course, an introduction, and so I've kind of rambled on and I've ranted quite a bit, and I do apologize, but I guess that's what you're here for, if you're here at all. The next few episodes are gonna have some more direction, I would say, because even though I'm not going to script anything, to keep it genuine, to keep it real, I am going to try to make a bit of an effort to structure each episode to come out with something, really. Now, um, I'd say one of the big uh, focuses, at least for me, because I've started using social media actively and engaging with socializing and promotions in the last 2 weeks, in the last fortnight, and there's been a lot of things I've discovered in that short time, which I think are worth discussing, because discussion itself is just another medium of art. um, at least it should be. All discussion should have some sort of root basis in an experience. It should be theatrical. It should be enjoyable. You should not sit there and um, bore yourself as someone speaks because they are sharing themselves with you. That time that will not come back, that is invaluable. And so each opportunity to listen and be heard is um, an ineffable exchange between two beings. It is one of the closest things we can do. And so I've never understood people's, especially with the advent of social media, driving people's attention spans into oblivion. There's this often lack of interest or lack of engagement where people just don't want to hear what you have to say. They just don't want to hear it because they've heard it before, or that they already know, or that they couldn't be bothered. And, I think this has become especially relevant in today's age, but, if you turn back the clock and you look back in time, you'll see that people, words carried a lot more gravitas. That there was, entire industries built up around what people say, aka politics, and aka authorship, and even music, if you were to kind of get a little bit more technical with it. But now, everyone's just trying to skip ahead, skip dialogue, skip engagement. They're just trying to get to the core stimulus package, the straight up dopamine hits. And look, I'm not here to essentially judge that, even though I am. But I would say that if you were to pursue that, to what end, to what means? Because life is fleeting, and so if you don't make the time to even enjoy who you're talking to at any given time, because of course the nature of life itself is uncertain, then you're really not enjoying life. And so I'm not one to speak because I have my sufferings. Of course, I'm not some ultimately joyous or happy Buddha or monk figure. I'm not even here to preach really, because I'm preaching to the choir inevitably if you're listening to this. But no, This is more an opinion rather than all of this is an opinion piece. Disclaimer alert. So take it with a grain of salt, really, because I'm not here to do any preaching. I'm not here to do any sort of training. Let the digital nomads do that, apparently, because they have it all figured out as well. But, more or less, the takeaway for me would be this: enjoy what people have to say, but only listen to those who speak your language. Not literally. It's more figurative with that one. But you seek out people who share the same ideologies and same beliefs, not to create an echo chamber, mind you, because the internet already is that essentially, but because um, it can be quite polarizing, giving that much energy and effort and attention to things that do not interest you, that do not resonate with that do not resonate with your core beliefs or scriptures, you know, that do not resonate with your core beliefs or scriptures. Um, but anyway, I think that is enough for this introduction. That's my little boof boy uh, in the background. You may have heard. He is a staffy cross ridgeback, and he's quite a good boy. He's a little boof, to quote the French. He his name is Parker, based on an old television series I watched as a kid, the Thunderbirds, um, Lady Penelope and Parker. Anywho, I shall leave it at that before the rant becomes a true ramble, and we will pick this up in episode 2. Thank you.